when you are invited in and you're sitting around the table, your voice is just as important as everyone else's. I think our voice is powerful if we put it out there. I'm pretty laid back as it is, even in terms of my leadership style. But yeah, love to laugh, always looking for those moments, because if we don't laugh in leadership, we will cry.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Taking Her Lead. This is Trace Kerr.
And this is Joshua Everett Mayer. This episode, we get to introduce our new theme music, which was composed and produced by Emily Lau out of Portland. And it also includes Dan Myers, my oldest friend and one of my very best friends, on recorder, and then Jessica Korotkin on Baroque cello.
I think we should take a moment. Let's give it just a little bit of a listen. You know, the music reminds me of a BBC period piece. I love the urgency and the percussion. It's just gorgeous. I'm so glad that it's our new theme song.
Yeah, there's a bit of mystery in there. You know, we're mysterious people.
Oh, yes.
And we're excited. This is really great.
Yeah.
A big shout out to Emily, and thank you for putting that together.
In this episode, we are talking to Amelia Clark, the Administrative Officer for Spokane Regional Health District, all about her experience in leadership and leadership in a pandemic. I mean, it's a crazy time, and she's right out in the front.
She has taken on a whale of a challenge, and she was brought in last September. And so basically from a couple months in, they take lead on the coordinated response of the entire county in regard to the pandemic.
Yeah, and when this was recorded, Spokane was just applying for stepping into phase 2 of getting back out into the world. So we talked a little bit about that, and it's really great.
Yeah, and just a brief thank you to her for taking the time to speak with us. Felt like a real privilege. So without further ado, this is episode 8, Amelia Clark. Here we go. Amelia, welcome to Taking Her Lead.
Hi, happy to be here. Very excited to be participating.
You and I did chat a week ago, I think, maybe a little bit longer than that. Just had a chance to get to know each other a little bit, but we've saved the best for the recording, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
very good.
Opportunity for you to dig in.
All right.
And talk to us about yourself, your passions, perspective on leadership, on women in leadership, and we will get to all of that.
Yes. Why don't we start off with you just kind of giving our listeners an idea of what your current position is?
I am currently the Administrative Officer of the Spokane Regional Health District. Just got to Spokane maybe 8 months ago to accept this position and be in this role. And public health is a passion of mine. And now that we are responding here in the community to COVID since January 21st, you have to take a little time to get to know the community and start building those relationships so that you can start making an impact. And that window for me got really short really fast because I had to go into that first responder mode and start really working with the staff and working with the health officer and our local elected officials to come up with our response here and how we would work within the community. So a lot of things really excited me about coming to Spokane and to this position. My career has really been around public health and social determinants and influences of health and federally qualified health centers and primary care and integrating primary care and integrated care together. So that's where I am currently. I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of running on adrenaline and caffeine right now. We just submitted the variants to the State Department of Health for us to go to phase 2 as part of the governor's reopening of Washington. So we've gone into that phase along with some of the other counties around the state. And please do not quiz me on those county names because I'm still learning them.
Okay.
I came from Indiana, and Indiana has 92 counties. And so here in Washington, I think there's 39 counties, but you can fit 2 Indianas within the space of the mass of Washington. When people say county names to me, I don't know where that is. Like, that is far. I just know it's far from here. So
really could be too.
like, that's very far.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a whirlwind, but it's also really exciting because I think as a leader, I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get in there and figure things out and really help problem solve, because for me, it's all about the community. If I can respond to things more quickly, if I can develop systems to help get us to the next phase or to the next level, whatever the project is, that's part of what keeps me motivated, is I like that energy around it. That's where I am.
You are in your idiom then.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we are thankful.
When I saw that you had started September of 2019, right? It's kind of about when you started. And then I was like, I have highlighted in my questions here, leadership in a pandemic, because I thought, wow, you got chucked in the deep end.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating, and I'm sure we'll get into this as we talk more, I'm also currently in a doctorate program for public health. So I'll have I'll have a DRPH from the IU Fairbanks School of Public Health. And, I've been talking with some of the cohort that I'm in. There's 9 of us and 8 of us are female, which is really interesting. But
wow.
I actually, one of the professors asked me to present some COVID related topics. And I was talking to my classmates, and we all have multiple years of experience, we work in different aspects of public health, and none of us could think of a time where information was it's constantly changing. It's this constant, how do you stay on top of it? Because just right when you think you have the plan, it was like, oh, just joking. Like, just, never mind. Oops, never mind, and it's been just this really wildness around that. And I think that's been part of the really challenging yet interesting part of this, because a lot of public health and what happens kind of in this social influence of health arena, it's really about educating people and communicating with people. And when the message you're receiving is always changing, then you've got to be able to quickly change then what you're saying out to the public. So you're just kind of always, it's like a tornado. It's always moving. And then someone asked me, it's so funny. Someone said to me, Amelia, how are you doing this? I'm like, well, I also
good question.
I also bought a house last week. So
my goodness.
Wow.
I am just someone who has always just been really busy. And that's probably one of my actual weaknesses as a leader, is sometimes I have to have people around me that go, okay, today we're going to take a deep breath, right? Like, we're just gonna, okay. And my mom always teases me because, in high school, I wanted to be in everything. I wanted to be in all the clubs and all the whatever. And, when you're a moody teenager, sometimes you need your mom to go, okay, I know it's 8:00, but you have to go to bed. You're just too much. And so now my husband plays more of that role. Like, okay, just no phone. You're done. You just need to go. Yeah. So it's going to be fine. That's just part of me. I accept it, and the people who love me accept it. So that's good. But
you're the right person.
I go a lot.
Yeah.
I go a lot. Yeah.
So that kind of ties in. I was reading the Spokesman Review, that's the local Spokane newspaper article, and you were quoted as saying that you think women are kind of the chief medical officers of the home, but they overlook their own health while taking care of others. And it sounds like you might have been talking about yourself too.
Oh, 100%.
But that's that leadership piece, right?
Right. And that I have to have people around me to remind me to take care of me, because I do go into that where I'm trying to take care of everyone else, and I try to do things to remind myself to take those deep breaths, because you should take time and get rest and all those different things. But I think women play such a pivotal role in the home and just in communities. I think we're like the watchers in a way of who's been to the doctor, who's doing this, who's doing that, and and it's not always that I don't want to say, it's not that I don't know that it's being done, but I feel like I have to stay on top of it. And I think women do that. I think that's a role we do a lot. Even now, my in-laws are back in Indiana. My parents are back in Indiana. And it's, every week I'm saying to my husband, "Hey, did you talk to your parents? Who's talking to your parents?" And he's like,
My wife never says
right,
that to me.
right. And who's with COVID? So your parents are in a high risk category.
Mhm.
Have you and your sister arranged for someone to deliver groceries? And he had it. He's totally capable, he's great. And they had both, he and his sister, had taken care of it, but it's okay. I have to kind of mentally go through, just like that chief medical officer would be going through and saying, okay, we've got primary care, check. We've got this, check. And I think that really women play that part, even in the bigger picture of health, of beyond primary care, of being in the community. I think we're the people that look for things and look for ways to make things better.
And connect.
Oh.
Yeah. And connect, right. And build the relationship to not just, is that working? And if it's not working, let's fix it. Why? And I think we tend to be good relationship builders that way.
I have a question for you. This is kind of in setting kind of context for our listeners. So we have the fire department, EMTs.
Yeah.
And we have the hospitals. We have primary care. We've got indigo centers, multi-care, and we've got in-home, all these different components. What role does your organization play in, especially with responding to COVID, in collaborating and working with all of them? Are you guys at the point? How does that work?
I'll start off first by talking about when we're not in a response phase, when it's just normal public health, or as normal as possible. So public health is really the part of the health system that looks at all of the social pieces, in addition to things like safe restaurants, food inspections. We are if someone tests positive for an STI, from any of the places that you just mentioned, and when that gets reported, our epidemiologists do that contact tracing to go out and find out where that disease could be spreading to, because we're the watch, if you will, related to those things. We try to look at what are the things that we do in the community that make it safe and that make it healthy. So we look at, I'm trying to think of a really good example for you. I have someone on staff who helps look at sidewalk stuff, right? Like, she's on different committees in the community. And when we look at how does a sidewalk impact someone's ability to walk to and from a bus stop, that could be something that she would consult on. We look at things like vaccine preventable diseases. So are children getting the immunizations that they need? Are they accessible? Is there a reason? We help track a lot of that data along with the state. So that would be ways that we normally work together. And then within kind of more the bigger picture of the response piece, we are the planning of the response. So even prior to COVID, we have contacts at all the organizations, like you mentioned, to say, okay, if it's disaster or something that happens, here's the steps that public health takes, here are the steps that the hospital takes. And then you have these job action plans, and you kind of know what role everybody takes. So COVID, one of the big things that we're all always watching is how many beds do hospitals have available. And so working with the hospitals to make sure that they have what they need. And then we can help them if we needed to go into, so what, if you saw all the video footage from New York, where they had basically like camp hospitals set up in the middle of Central Park, that could be something that we would help facilitate if, God forbid, we ever got to that point. So we become, this is one of my favorite quotes from public health, and the dean of the school that I'm in says it. It's that public health is always political, but it need not be partisan. So public health is that neutral convener, if you will, because all the hospitals and all the different clinics, they're natural competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're the convener that can bring those groups together to work together.
We all have to work together. Well, especially with the moving to phase 2, I was reading that the hospitals had to submit how much PPE do we have and then how many beds do we have. So you have to be coordinating all of that to submit that report.
Right. Part of the foundational public health services, a lot of that funding here in Washington, there is funding as part of that whole funding stream for data and surveillance. We have a data center at the health district that can really help bring all the different numbers together. If you've seen the dashboards or county insights that we have, that's actually something that the health district helps with. We have a lot of data that we can look at, and we're also really a lot of community health needs assessments. We can help organizations do those.
Who do you report to? You've got a board.
Yeah, we have a board. I report to the board, and the board at the health district is made up of elected officials, and then from both the county, and then Spokane Valley has a representative, a couple of representatives actually, and then the small cities, we have a representative from there, and I think I said Spokane City Council, and then the county commissioners are all on the board, and then they all can have an appointed citizen from their jurisdiction. So that's how that works. Yeah.
It's a big board.
Yeah.
So from a scientific point of view, okay, you are a scientist and you're looking at data and you've been trained on how to do that. And this applies to COVID and then pretty much any kind of public health issue. What is it like being a leader, having to relay information to people who might not have that science background and understanding?
I like to call myself a pracademician.
Nice.
And that is basically, I have this academic knowledge, and I think this is one of my leadership gifts as well, is that I have the ability to convert things easily into usable language, which makes me very practical.
Yeah.
When I was in college, remembering back to those days, a lot of people ask me, are you going to go on and do a PhD? What are you going to do? And I always wanted to do something outside of the university setting because I think it's really important to have practical experience. And then now that I've gone back to school, I'm really thankful for that because I'm able to take all of this academic stuff and then I can hear it and I can get all these ideas. And then I can say to professors, and they, I'm sure, love when I say this, that's a super brilliant idea. And I love the basis of it. And let's talk about how it's either going to work or not going to work. So sometimes they don't think about the little pieces. A few months ago, I was invited Gonzaga, which it's funny because in the Midwest, it's Gonzaga.
Gonzaga, of course.
So I've been quickly I was retaught that when I moved here. I was invited to speak. They have a program with the University of Washington with their med school, where they have medical students actually also doing a leadership program. And when I was sitting there, what I did is I put together different case scenarios of what would you do? Because physicians are trained very scientifically, but having worked in medical practices, there's nothing quite like the look on a new doctor's face when they're in a rural clinic or they go into some place and all of a sudden they are no longer, quote, just the doctor. They are now the counselor, the spiritual advisor, all of these things that are expected, and they don't know that. I walked them through some real life scenarios that I've been through, and it was really eye-opening for them to go, really? People are going to want that from me or ask that from me, or what do you do? One of the stories I told them was when I was working in rural health in Indiana, they couldn't figure out this patient, his A1C, which is his blood glucose level, was all over the place. Nobody could figure it out. And finally, the person who sat at the front desk said, his wife passed away 3 weeks ago.
Oh, gosh. So he's just eating whatever.
How many ever weeks it had been? The physician was like, well, how do you know that? And she's like, I know everything. I sit at the front desk of this rural. Well, she knew everybody. She knew everybody's mom. She knew everybody's dad.
Yeah.
What a great resource. So as a physician, how do you develop those relationships? Because you're used to really being in your own physician cadre. And how much better could our care be if we're listening to everyone who can be part of the care team? So when we have our morning huddles, let's have the receptionist come into those, because she may have some really great information that we need to know. Yeah. And those are the things I look for. Like, try to build that in whenever I work. I'm a leader in those organizations.
Well, yeah, because you got to remember that the people that you're working with and for are people, right? They're not just data points. That's
right.
And
complex.
Yeah. And it would be easy to get into your head, especially like a new young doctor. I'm just thinking of like, it's all about textbooks and it's all about, well, how do I diagnose this? And it's like, but that's a person. You have to talk to them.
When I started working with integrated care, one of the issues I ran up against was I was putting social workers onto primary care teams. And what we found was how important language is. When a physician would say, I have a social worker who can help you with that, people would clam up because sometimes there's a negative connotation there.
Perception of the social worker. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we started saying things like, we have a specialist in-house that can help you with that, totally changed. Because you've got to create these ways for everybody to be able to do the work that they need to do. So getting the physicians to do their work in their lane. And since it is very academic and use that resource as the social worker who can be part of your team so that you can do that whole care for that whole individual.
Collaborative care.
Yeah, because what I love about interprofessional teams is that everybody can do what they're trained to do. And the real benefit is the patient. And then it's also your professional, the secondary part's your own professional sanity, because you're not trying to figure out all those other pieces. I can come in and do my part and help pull those pieces together, but I'm not going to be the only person responsible. I'm bringing others in to help.
Amelia, have you read or heard of The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jameson?
I have not.
Oh my goodness.
But I wrote the word empathy down when you sent me my cheat sheet of questions. So the empathy exam, I had to write that down.
Yeah. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's heartbreaking because of some of the topics that she covers in there. She, for a time, was a medical actor. And so she was part of the training program for residents. And they would come into the room and she would play a patient with, presenting issues and deeper issues. And the focus part of it was just, can the resident figure out what's going on? But they put a heavy emphasis on the level of empathy that the resident could use in the process of establishing rapport and bridging that gap, the academic to the social gap. It's great. It's just right in line with what you're talking about.
I think empathy is one of those things we can all be better at. There are a lot of people who are naturally empathetic, but then they can continue to grow their skills. But I think part of that emotional intelligence of leadership is to be able to be empathetic and to be able to pick up on cues that people aren't saying out loud of watching people and paying attention to them, because not everybody communicates the same way. And I think it's something we can all grow with.
It's learnable.
It definitely is. I love Brene Brown, and she talks about that. That's really, that vulnerability and that empathy can really take us a long way.
Yeah.
Do you find when you're building collaborative teams, because it seems like, just looking at your career, that has definitely been something that you've been doing all along. Do you find pushback? And, I feel like women are a little more geared towards this kind of group project sort of feel to working. What do you experience any pushback? What have you done about that?
Yes, I've experienced pushback. I actually think I told Joshua a story about this. So when I joined an organization as the youngest vice president and the only female vice president, I was bringing integrated care to the organization. And it's an organization that was not integrated. I was the first time someone from the primary care or federally qualified health center world had been there. And I was just having a horrible time trying to connect. I think when you go into a new position, you try to find somebody who maybe you have something in common with, or you both get your coffee at the same time in the break room. So you ask about their weekend. You always try to kind of find those ends. It wasn't happening. And I noticed that the men were always playing a lot of golf, but no one was inviting me to play golf. And I had started, he was talking to me a little more, and I would, throw in things about integrated care and try to get him excited about it, which he still really wasn't. And I heard him signing up this foursome for golf. And I said, are you getting the teams ready for next Sunday? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, my husband and I would love to join. And he looked at me and he said, oh, I didn't know you played golf. And I said, oh, I didn't say yes or no, right? I just said, oh. So I get home.
Savvy.
And I said to my husband, I said, I know we're having dinner at your parents' on Saturday, but on Sunday, I really need you to teach me how to play golf, because the next Sunday, you and I are going to be part of a foursome.
Oh, gosh.
And he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, do you know what you've just done? He's like, Amelia, those guys play golf all the time. Yeah, but I can't be left out. Something's got to give. I got to find a way. So that Sunday, we get to this driving range, middle of the summer. And the first thing he says to me was, where are your shoes? And I was like, well, I have flip-flops on. And he was like, he's like, no, but like, where are your shoes? What do you mean? And he's like, do you understand there's $1 billion industry related to golfing equipment and you have on flip-flops? Oh, good call. So I'm immediately on my phone on Amazon ordering like cutest hat and cutest golf skirt and all this stuff that I can. But that's a sidetrack. But
tools.
Yeah, tools. The next Sunday we get to the golf country club, and my husband was doing something and I was trying to get our clubs because we just had his clubs. And my husband's not really a golfer either. He just had this old set from his dad and grandpa. I mean, it was really actually quite embarrassing now that I think about it. But I was trying to get the clubs like on the back of our cart. Finally, the gentleman from work came over to me and he said, Amelia, I don't think you know what you're doing. And I said, you're right. I really don't. And I said, but here's the thing. I got to be part of the team. And he just looked at me and he was like, what? I said, we're going to lose with points, with strokes, whatever these things are called. I don't even know. I don't even know. And I said, but I promise we are going to make it up with lots of laughter and lots of getting to know each other out on the golf course. Because you guys, I got to be part of the team. I have to. And from that point on, with a lot of reflection, I had to get vulnerable. I had to do something just ridiculous.
Big risk.
I don't even think I made contact with the ball maybe once that day. It was really bad. But in terms of leadership, it was okay. I've got to figure out how to win them over. And then how, by being humble, and even though I've been brought in as this person that knows primary care, let me figure out what I can learn from them. Because I think a lot of times being an expert in something with building relationships, you can lose a lot perspective if you come in thinking you're the only one who knows the stuff. And I sometimes find that when I make myself the student, I can build a really great relationship there. I try to use that. Some of it's just that I'm naturally inquisitive. I love to read and I love to figure out how things work. But that's one of the things that I try to use to connect. And the thing is it's genuine for me. I'm genuinely interested in other things. In case of golfing, Gary, who realized I didn't know what I was doing, but he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. Whenever I had questions at the organization, I could always have that funny laugh. All right, we've already established Amelia doesn't know how to play golf. And here's another thing I don't understand. Can you help me understand why we do it this way? Versus, well, here's the way to do it. Or here's Amelia's way to do it, right? I could take input, and then when I could ask thoughtful questions back, it helps people be heard and understand that their opinion's important.
You're taking a risk to build a bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wish that women didn't have to be the bridge builders, but it happens to be that women are very good at it.
Yeah. I was also thinking of this today. Your questions were really good that you sent, thinking about what were some pivotal moments or touch points. Back when I was an undergrad, I went to the Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, an IU campus, an urban campus in the middle of the city. I had mentioned earlier, I like to be involved in a lot of things. And the chancellor of the university invited a student to sit on his diversity cabinet. It was made up of all these high up people throughout the community, the Urban League, NAACP, all these deans and provosts, kind of intimidating for a student.
Yeah.
I was just sitting in there, and the first meeting, I said nothing. The next meeting, I'll never forget this. I think this is one of those things that stick out in my head. Sam Jones was the head of the Urban League in Indianapolis for many years, had a 40-plus year career there. After that second meeting, he says, "Miss Gilbert," Gilbert's my maiden name, "I noticed you're not speaking in these meetings." And I was impressed that he caught my name. And I said, "Well, Mr. Jones, these people are all really smart and deans and professors, and I'm just here as the student representative. I don't know if I'm supposed to even speak." And I'll never forget it. He said, "Amelia, when you are invited in and you're sitting around the table, your voice is just as important as everyone else's." And he said, "When you leave this room, that may not be the case." Sometimes when I think on that moment, that's like one of my most powerful leadership things, because I think that it really inspired me. To me, that's one of those life lessons that after, you get a few years of experience under your belt, you start going, "Oh yeah, Mr. Jones was right." But you know how a woman will maybe go to a door, maybe they need a signature or something, and they kind of knock and they kind of like totter back and forth. "Hey, hi, excuse me, I know you're super busy, but can I get that signature?" They're reluctantly asking if they can bother you in order to do their job.
Yep. It's an apology.
Yeah. I had someone on my staff who would come to my door and do that. And she did it a couple of times, and I stopped her. I said, "Why do you get these signatures from me?" She said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, help me understand." And she said, "Well, I pull the payroll together," kind of walked me through, the whole payroll process. And she said, "But I can't send it on to this step until I get someone, the VP level, to sign off." And I said, "Are you telling me that when you come into this room, you are playing a critical role for us to make sure that payroll gets done on time for the 1,000 employees we have?" And she was like, "Well, I don't think about it that way, but yeah." And I said, "Okay, so next week or, 2 weeks, when you come in, you play an important role, right? Because we all want to get paid. We're not doing this for free." And I said, "When you come to my door, come with confidence. My signature for your job, you got to have that. Don't apologize. If it's critical to your role, don't apologize." I think that that's something women do a lot.
Yes.
We have to stop apologizing for that critical role that we play. If it's payroll, if it's being the chief medical officer at your home, we do that a lot. I try to not do it, and I try to encourage others to not do it, because I think our voice is powerful if we put it out there.
Well said. Where does the motivation in women to apologize come from?
I think sometimes women's perspective, sometimes they're hesitant to bring it up because they know it's going to shift the conversation. And if she doesn't have allies in the room, it could backfire. I don't feel like I was always encouraged at school to really have that right out there voice. It's like this thing in your head where you're looking to be accepted as part of the group. Hey, I want to be part of the group. And I'm also going to bring up other ideas and ways of thinking that could throw off the group. And how are they going to perceive me after that?
Yeah.
I think there's a level of confidence that goes along with that. And, growing up, I had a great mom, a great grandma, people who would always push me. And, I think back about teachers and just different people who have encouraged me to keep going, because it's hard. It would be so easy, if I think back to being the first female, the youngest female, sitting around a group of me and 6 men in a room, and everyone's old enough to be my dad, and go, oh yeah, I'm out. I'm not going to be able to make a difference because they don't want to hear me. And I think the apologizing kind of discredits. By apologizing at the beginning, it comes off a little lighter. And I'm sure you can both think of examples where you've seen women do that, even if it's something simple. Hey, I need you to go do this, when you're talking to maybe a kid at home or something. And I think dad walks in and goes, hey, go move your bike. Kid gets up, right, and goes move his bike. I'm over there going, hey, yeah, I know you were out riding your bike with your friends. It'd be really great. But no, go move your bike. Just go do it.
Yeah.
How do you balance the need to speak the given language, which is often a more aggressive, based on the masculine dominance of the leadership landscape? It's more aggressive, it's more assertive, with the staying true to yourself, in addition to the power of women being able to read the room, knowing how to negotiate and navigate well.
Someone who was on the transition committee that actually helped bring me here to Washington to this position. Anytime you come into a new role, it's always, how is it all going to work? How am I going to build relationships, get people to come on board with my vision, and also knowing sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. And he said to me, as long as when you go home at night and you look in the mirror and you feel good about you at the end of the day, that's how you know you made the right decisions. I thought about that for a while when he said it to me. I think that at times in my career, when I have been pushed on doing things that I have not felt true to myself about, that is unhealthy for me. I really feel that people should have a mission statement about what they want in their life and what their mission is. I think purpose is huge. If I make this decision or I negotiate this, because part of negotiation is compromise and figuring out, okay, what parts of this am I okay with going away? But what are the things that are sacred to me? I think sometimes as a leader, it is hard because you have to make decisions that are not going to be popular, that maybe your staff are not going to be okay with. And sometimes you have to be vulnerable. I've had a lot of questions through the whole COVID experience. Amelia, what's our funding going to look like at the end of the year? What's that going to mean for this program or this program? When I've been true to myself and been able to just be transparent and say, you know what, y'all, I don't know, but I know I'm going to work to figure out all of the angles, and I'm going to communicate with all of you so that you're in the loop. I can handle it. If I was saying it's all going to be great, but I don't know if it's all going to be great, to me, that's not integrity. That's not being true to yourself. There was a second part to that question too, wasn't it? About reading the room. I'm actually a pretty quick reader of rooms. I don't know if that's a thing. Can you be a quick reader of rooms?
You sure
Yes.
can.
I do a lot of research. I would never show up for a meeting where I hadn't done my LinkedIn, Facebook stalking.
It's helpful. Yeah.
Y'all do it. I would not go into a room not knowing. I really think listening more and being able to watch the room. Women give quicker responses sometimes, I think, than men do, to try to think about the whole room and like what the impacts are. What's going to keep somebody from wanting to do something the A way, the B way, the C way. So I try to research to know what the angles are. Actually, now that I say all of this out loud, it's kind of exhausting, isn't it? Like, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Oh God! Like now, when the podcast becomes therapy, I think you have to think strategically.
Being a woman, especially in an environment where men are in positions of power, because you don't have that privilege piece, I feel like you have to come in more prepared. And I almost wonder if that doesn't tie in with the apology.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I need to say something. You shouldn't have to apologize, and you shouldn't have to do 4 hours of preparation to do a meeting that this other person just walked into.
Right.
To feel qualified enough to say what you need to say, because you've almost got a PhD. You've been doing this for a long time. You should be able to just walk in and say, this is what I think, and that should be enough. And I don't know when we're going to reach that point where, like, looking forward for the future of women in leadership,
Right.
where do we reach that point?
Tracy, you just summed that up. I think one of the ways we do it is we just, as we mentor, as we, continue to bring people along, thinking back on your careers, when was a time when you were walking in apologizing to a VP for getting a critical portion of your job done? Did that VP stop you and say, okay, look, I'm going to empower you to never have to come in here and apologize? To me, that's how we get past some of that. We've got to keep empowering women. They shouldn't have to do that. I remember interviewing someone it was, myself as a VP and then a male VP. We interviewed a young woman. She had all these great characteristics. And the person that ended up getting the position just had more experience, a little more polished. I wavered on that because I thought the young woman did a great job in the interview. And, after we had offered the position to the other candidate, and it was an internal thing, I went to the young woman that didn't get a job, the younger woman, and said, hey, I just wanted to tell you, I thought you did an amazing job interviewing. I think that with this kind of experience and with this kind of focus, really try to work on these two skills right here. Next time you're going to get it. I believe in you. And this is what, from my experience, I think you need to work on. She told the VP at the time that she reported to. And it was funny because he came to me and he goes, hey, she just told me what you just told her. And I thought, am I in trouble? You know what I mean? I was like, why are you in here?
Yeah.
And he was like, thank you. And I was like, what? And he was like, thank you for saying those things to her. And I was like, why are you thanking me when you should be doing that?
Oh, snap.
He and I had been colleagues, and why am I having to look out for all the women in the organization when that should be everyone's job? And I would do that, right? If it would have been a male who had applied for that job as well, I would have been totally fine going to him too and saying, here's what you need to work on. If people don't know what they need to work on, how are they ever going to get better? Think about my Sam Jones story. He knew that I was capable. He just needed to give me that little push. Your voice matters. I had a woman who reported to me, and one of the things as a leader, and I'm sure it drives the people that report to me crazy, when we make their goals for the year, I always have them pick a goal that's like a personal career goal. And it can be anything they want. Public speaking, conflict resolution, communication, whatever you think you need to be a better professional, right? A better leader. I don't tell them what it is. They can pick it. And a young woman reported to me who wanted to get better at public speaking. And since she let me know that, anytime that I could have her work on a presentation with me or get her in front of a manager's meeting, helping her gain that skill. After she no longer reported to me, I got this card one day and it said, Amelia, I just want to say thank you. And I also want to let you know I just ran for public office.
Wow.
For me, that was the pinnacle leadership moment. My trying to encourage and trying to empower her. We all know what we need to be better deep down. Let me, quote Taylor Swift on a podcast.
Go for it.
You point out the things I'm bad at, like I don't already see them. When you can say to someone, what do you need from me to feel supported? Because I don't feel like my job is to do your job. My job is to help open the roadway. I'm supposed to clear the path for you to be out there and doing what you need to do. A couple of years ago, my dad was in the hospital, and he was in the hospital a long time. He was very sick, and you would have physicians, that come in the room. They come in like a robot, ask some questions, and like robot back out. And you're like, is that it? Right? Like I've been waiting for hours for this person to come in, and that's it. And then you would have these physicians, and they would come in and they'd pull over the empty chair and sit and talk to you. And they ask you, like, do you have any questions? Is there anything I can explain to you? Are you getting what you need? Are you getting, are you getting this? Are you getting that? So just the whole notion of of pulling over a chair so that you're on the same level as someone. So it's not the physician standing over the bed or standing over the chair. You're on that same level. And I can tell you, with the exception of one, the only physicians that did that were female.
Huh.
Wow.
But we had female doctors who would do it a lot. And I think that that speaks very loudly to trying to really understand.
What are you most hopeful about with regard to the future of women in leadership?
I definitely think the tides are turning. I'm seeing more of my female colleagues going into higher level positions. Right now, we've got this interesting part of the workplace where we're going to have a lot of retirement in a few years. I think there's going to be this changing of the guard a little bit where we're going to start seeing quite a few retirements. Women are going to come into those roles. Just my cohort, for example, having 8 women and 1 man is a telling piece. I think we have to be smart about it in terms of politics, in terms of voting, thinking about how we continue to promote women, how we empower them, how they have access to education. As women, we've got to support each other in this, be ready to be vulnerable so that we can really keep pushing forward. I'm hopeful. I see a lot of interest in younger women who reach out to me, who want to learn more about what I do, or who just want to talk to me about public health. Even though I'm busy, I always try to make a connection with those folks those women, when they reach out to me, just to make sure I'll make a connection for them. And I think that that's something that women are starting to get much better at, as in that networking piece, getting us connected to who we need to be connected to, be it other leaders, but just really, you can't be afraid to push. And I see more women pushing.
What do you say to a young woman who wants to get into leadership?
So one of the things I always say, because if someone would have told me this, 20 years ago, it might have been helpful. I think that when you're passionate about something, and like I said earlier, when you feel good about you and the decisions you're making, you have to remember it's not personal. And what I'll say by that is, I once had someone make a comment to me about being, a VP at a young age. They were really nasty about it. They said, "You've just always been in the right place at the right time." I mean, I was just crazy ticked.
Yeah.
And I just walked away. I was telling a friend and I said the whole thing. And they reminded me, when people say nasty things, it's more about what's going on inside of them versus you. I think the other thing is, try to find people, sometimes they're men, sometimes they're women, that you can connect with and that you build a relationship with, that you can learn from. My mom, very strong woman, she would always say this thing, because people would be surprised that we could do things or build a piece of furniture. You get it at Target and come home and build it. And I remember saying in high school, like, yeah, my mom and I built this or we did that. And they'd be like, oh, well, who helped you? What do you mean, who helped us? Oh, well, who helped you? And my mom always says, if there are directions, we can do it.
Yes.
If there are directions in that box, we're doing it. We can do this. We don't need anybody's help. It's so funny, because we kept laughing about that when we were driving. So we had, our Atlas and our iPhones. Look at us. We're 2 gals out on the open road. If we can read the directions, if we can read the map, we can do it.
I love it.
Even with my graduate degree, my mom was the first person to go to college, in my family. She had 5 brothers and sisters, and she was the first. Back in the day, you could have certificate nursing to be an RN. Now it's BSN. She got her certificate, and her RN. And then when I started kindergarten, she started working on her BSN because she wanted me to see someone go to college. So powerful. And I remember as a kid tagging along with her to classes and all that good stuff. And after my undergrad, I got married and I had a bachelor's degree in anthropology. And P.S. for the listeners, there are no help wanted signs for anthropology. It's a great subject. It's fascinating. I love it. I love culture and studying people. But I mean, how do you get a job? So my mom got me a job answering phones at a home health care agency that she was doing some work at. And the phone rang and it was for me, which is weird when you're answering phones. And it's like, Amelia. And I'm like, what? Who's calling? It was one of the assistant deans that had worked in student relations when I was an undergrad. I was all excited on the phone. And she's like, Amelia, like, I can have this graduate assistant and I want it to be you. And you can start in 2 weeks. Peggy positive on the phone, and it gets to the end of it. And I was, yeah, I don't know what a grad assistant is. What do you mean you don't know what a grad assistant is? And I said, like, I don't know what you're saying to me. I don't know what that means. Well, you would come here and work, and we would pay for your graduate school. And I was like, wait a minute, what? You go to graduate school and you become an assistant. And then she's walking me through this. And I remember saying to her, the only people that go to graduate school are really smart or really rich.
Wow.
Amelia, pivotal leadership moment. I never want you to say you're not smart. You didn't say you weren't smart, but by what you said, you inferred it that you're not as smart as everyone else, one. And the thing about being rich, yeah, doctors, lawyers, these are graduate school people, not me. So she starts talking me through all the types of graduate programs, which that's overwhelming because you don't have any frame of reference for people who've gone to graduate school in your life. And I called my husband and then I called my mom and we will figure it out. Again, if we can read the directions, we'll do it. I think that that's why I went to grad school, because I had someone looking out for me, encouraged me to go for it. And I literally, within 2 weeks, quit my job, started grad school, started this graduate assistantship. My mom, if they're going to pay your tuition, I'll find a way to help you buy books. So we just sat down and said, we got this. I think that that's part of my DNA is like, we got this. Like, we'll go forward.
So thanks to Amelia Clark for taking the time to chat with us. We want to let everyone know we now have a link to Patreon on our website, takingherlead.blueberry.net, BLUBRRY. And any contribution you make goes towards our operating costs and helps us reach out to more women in leadership. And we appreciate every single one of you who do this every day.
Absolutely. We'd also love for you to connect with us on LinkedIn. And you can follow us on Twitter at @her_taking. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. And a last note that, of course, our new theme music was written and composed by Emily Lau with collaborators Dan Myers and Jessica Korotkin.
And our beautiful logo was designed by our creative director, Elizabeth Pierce.
For all those women who are in leadership and all those who want to be, our hats off to you. This is Joshua Everett Mayer.
And this is Trace Kerr. Talk to you soon.